At my grandfather's house, he had an old reel-to-reel tape recorder in his lounge room that my brother and I used to play with whenever we went around and visited. I think that's the first example I can think of me engaging with audio tech. But I would also combine that with getting Michael Jackson's Bad on cassette.
It's the ins and outs with Mackie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Hernandez, and this is the Ins and Outs with Mackie, a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We'll be bringing musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and sometimes the occasional Mackoid. If you're new to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite platform to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they're out. So our guest today is an internationally experienced education director, senior lecturer, mastering engineer, and acoustician. He is widely known as an integral part of Australia's largest mastering studio, Turtlerock, having worked on Australia's top albums. Now he's revolutionizing the educational experience for music tech students using virtual simulations. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mark Bassett.
Hey, how you doing? Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Australia's bright, sunny, beautiful. So,
well, I wish I could say the same thing about Seattle.
None of the above?
Right, none of the above. All right, Mark, we'll right into it. So, Mark, what is your first earliest musical memory that inspired you to get into the world of music?
I think it would be at my grandfather's house. He had an old reel-to-reel tape recorder in his lounge room that my brother and I used to play with whenever we went around and visited. I think that's the first example I can think of me engaging with audio tech. But I would also combine that with getting Michael Jackson's Bad on cassette. It's the first album I ever bought. So those two kind of things joined together, I think.
And when did the road of education start combining with that?
I studied audio engineering in Sydney in early 2000s, and then went on to do my master's in audio design and acoustics. And while I was studying in postgrad, I got asked to start teaching at the school I studied at originally, and loved it and have never looked back. So I've continued to teach and done so really for the past sort of 10 plus years.
Wow. So tell us about the SAE Creative Media Institute and your role there.
SAE is the world's largest creative media institute. We have 40 plus campuses across 20 plus countries. I've taught audio at SAE in Sydney, Melbourne, Dubai, Byron Bay, London, and San Francisco. As a senior lecturer, as an academic coordinator, and now I am the academic director of our education partners. So 8 of our campuses around the world operate under a licensing model. They're not owned by SAE. They're independently operated, and my role is to provide academic quality assurance to those campuses. I also work as a senior lecturer in SAE Australia in our Masters of Creative Industries program and teach visual programming, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And aside from all that, I spearhead SAE's Virtual Tools project, which has given birth to the simulator we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you. So before we dive into that, what was the need that you saw that motivated and inspired you to start creating your own interactive applications?
Early on in my teaching career, I was forced to learn a piece of software called Max, which used to be called Max MSP, to design listening tests as part of my university research. And when I started teaching, I realized that I could be creating interactive software that would allow new or fresh audio engineering students to learn the principles of audio engineering in an interactive way. So I've been doing that for around a decade. The early work was nowhere near advanced as what we're talking about today, but really about 10 years ago, I started developing these small little interactive applications to help students learn the foundations of audio engineering.
Wow, so about 10 years ago. So your staff is continuously developing next generation technologies to facilitate learning. What other technologies has this team created?
Well, the team is me. There's no one else. If you look at the SAE, if you look at the SAE software site, all of the software on there was developed by me. We can really go back to maybe 2016 when I developed what's called the SAE Parametric Equalizer training app, which is a piece of software designed to train audio engineering students to identify the center frequency of a parametric filter, basically trying to teach students to learn the sound of different frequencies. So that was released mid-2016. It's just come across 5 years. It's got over 30,000 downloads. It's free, it's Mac only, and you can still download it from the SAE software site today.
That's awesome. So in May, our team was super happy to announce that Mackie and the SAE Creative Media Institute partnership was launching a virtual simulator of one of our most popular mixers. And this was for the 1604 VLZ4. So first of all, what is a virtual simulator and how are they used?
So the virtual simulators that I develop are digital replications, software-based emulations of hardware. So the 1604 is one of the most widely used consoles at SAE globally. We love the Mackie brand, and that's the reason that we've chosen to develop this as a simulator. So essentially, it's a digital version, a computer-based software version of a hardware console, and it allows students to engage with the console without being physically in front of it, which has obvious benefits with the COVID lockdowns that have been happening.
Wow. What are some of those benefits of the simulators in a learning environment in particular?
The digital simulations help educators overcome some of the challenges that are involved with audio engineering education. So some of those challenges are control rooms have a limited capacity, so you can only fit a small amount of students in front of a console. Really only one or two of those students can be sitting in the sweet spot in front of the console, and the rest are kind of outside of that audio sweet spot and operating in the periphery. There's a limited number of studios on campus, so there's always a challenge. If you're an audio engineering student, there's always a competition to book that studio time. So with a digital simulation, you can learn the foundations of the console before you walk into the studio. This has really obvious benefits or really great benefits for educators, because instead of spending the first week or so teaching students the foundations of a new console, they already know those foundations before they get there. And that allows the educator to move the advanced classes in production much earlier and give students more time working with a higher level of skill towards their assessment.
I feel like that would also help take away the intimidation of seeing a mixer physically for the first time, because there's so many knobs, and being able to kind of be in the comfort of your own home and tinkering with everything and learning before you even touch it. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a safe space. You can't break it. You can learn. The other advantages are you can learn in your own time. So there's no pressure. The clock's not running until your studio session runs out. There's no other pressure around you from other students or staff. So that intimidation aspect is gone. The other great part about it is you can load in your own music.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't seen any research that supports it, but I'd like to think that students would learn better if they're using music that they're comfortable with and that they know very well. So they can hear the differences that the EQs apply, for example, with the console when you're listening to a track that you know backwards versus a track that you don't know very well. So there's a long list of advantages that they offer.
So the simulation is realistic. Can you explain a little bit about that?
It's developed from a single photo of the 1604. So I got a high-res photo, thanks to Mackie. They sent it through of the console taken from a position a long way away from the console using a zoom lens, which removes all of the perspective. So that original photo is then all the dials and faders and controls are removed and then put back on in the Mac software that I use and made to be functional. So it is literally the same visually as the console in real life. So all of the colors, dials, positions, everything is exactly the same. It's got shadows, lights. It looks like you're using the real thing, which is incredibly important.
After messing with it a little bit of myself, something I really liked about it was the different layers and the modes that come with it. You want to talk a little bit about those? I know you're going to do a deep dive, but maybe explain why you decided to create the layers and stuff, how you did.
Yeah, so if you just create a visual or digital simulation of a console, it's a really pointless activity because on its own, it's not very useful. It's the learning and teaching activities that get added to it that really bring that benefit. So no one would ever mix a record on a digital simulation like the ones I've created. You would just use, one of the standard digital audio workstations that are out there. It's a really convoluted way to go about mixing a record. So the advantage is the learning and teaching materials. And that really gets to the heart of the application, that this is not an audio production tool. It is not designed as a replacement of the physical console. It is a learning and teaching tool first and foremost. So aside from a visual simulation of the console, there's a secondary window, which is where all the learning and teaching materials exist. And there's three basic modes: a detail mode, an operate mode, and a tutorial mode that I guess we'll talk a little bit more about later.
Awesome. So the last update I saw, and you can correct me, I'm sure it's changed a lot since then. We were nearly hitting 200 downloads a day with numbers just continuously rising. What do you think the future holds for virtual simulators?
That's a great question. We've got more planned that we're going to develop. This particular simulator is going to be released on PC shortly,
Oh, wow.
because that's the other half of the world. Probably more than that, actually. They're going to continue to advance. The learning and teaching materials are going to get more and more interactive. So the sort of next advancements that I would see in these type of simulators is automatic grading of signal flow exams. So taking that away from lecturers, not having faculty need to be present when grading students' exams of operational competency, automatically feeding those grades into a learning management system would be fantastic as well. So creating some kind of license or digital passport that demonstrates your competency in the console before you book the studio on campus. And I guess there's also the students who aren't actually students, they're just people who are interested in learning about audio engineering. So we've been talking about the use of these in audio education institutions, but there's still people out there that aren't enrolled in those institutions that might never be, who can develop their interest in audio engineering and maybe discover a future talent or a future career by getting their hands on these kind of simulators.
Definitely. So you prepared a walkthrough of the Mackie 1604 VLZ simulator, which is the second digital console you developed as part of SAE Creative Media Institute's groundbreaking Virtual Tools project. What is the Virtual Tools project, and how did you first become involved?
The Virtual Tools project at SAE is designed to fast track the development of digital learning and teaching resources, not specifically audio engineering, but they're the ones that I've been working on. So the project started mid last year. The impetus for the project was really COVID and some of the earlier work that I've done developing these interactive simulations. So I was tasked with developing a prototype, and that prototype ended up being fully released and sort of exceeded expectations. And then we looked at what consoles are widely deployed across SAE. And the second one we developed is obviously the 1604. So we've got a few more coming out this year, and we're going to be developing some different language versions of the Mackie. Releasing it in Spanish is one that I'm really excited about, and also obviously releasing other versions, so PC. And then eventually web-based would be another way to really remove the platform-specific ability. But there's a trade-off there. I mean, do you really want to be learning a console on a mobile phone? So it really depends on how you think that access should be provided. The software I've developed to date is Mac only, but it doesn't work on mobile devices. So you need a Mac laptop to use it at this stage. But as I said, the PC version's coming really soon, so that'll be great.
The SAE Mackie 1604 VLZ4 simulator was created to provide students with remote access to a photorealistic simulation of the Mackie 1604 VLZ4 console. It is designed principally as a learning and teaching tool to allow students to learn the signal flow of the 1604 and practice using the console while off campus. The simulator is not an audio production tool, and as such, it is not intended to replace the physical console. Instead, the simulator aims to replicate the functionality and audio signal processing of the console for educational purposes. There are two main windows in the simulator, the instruction window and the console window. The instruction window provides access to the learning and teaching materials and is where you choose the console's mode of operation using the tabs at the top of the window. Console modes can also be chosen using keyboard shortcuts. The console window contains the console itself and is where you access the overview, audio inputs, effects, and block diagram sub-windows. The simulator features three modes of operation: Detail, Operate, and Tutorial. Detail mode provides an image and detailed description of any section of the console that you hover the mouse over. Operate mode unlocks the console's controls and allows you to choose between record and mix scenarios. Tutorial mode provides guided walkthroughs of key console operations, each designed to develop students' competence and confidence using the console. There are 15 tutorials available, separated into recording-related and mixing-related categories. The Overview sub-window provides a rundown of the simulator's features and lists the keyboard shortcuts. The Audio Input sub-window allows you to load mono or stereo sound files to serve as either microphone and line level signals or DAW playback signals. Which audio inputs are used is dependent on the selected scenario, record or mix. The Effects sub-window provides access to 4 digital effects, 2 mono delays and 2 stereo reverbs. Additional effects developed by SAE students will be added over time. The Block Diagram sub-window displays the block diagram for the 1604 to help students trace the signal flow through the console. Console and effect settings can be saved and recalled at any time, allowing students to recall previous sessions, share their settings with faculty, and submit their console settings for assessment. Pop-up hints are displayed when the user hovers their mouse over any component of the console. Each channel can be individually labelled with or without console tape. The photorealistic simulation is visually identical to the real thing and features identical controls, signal flow, lights, switches, routing, and non-modelled audio signal processing. The SAE Mackie 1604 VLZ4 simulator is officially endorsed by Mackie and is freely and publicly available for download from SAE's software page.
So what experiences or lessons do you hope your students walk away with after having worked with one of your simulators?
Hopefully they learn that consoles are not intimidating pieces of equipment. They can look like that when you first walk into a room, especially with a large format console. And learning that each of the channels are identical, except for the master section. So it does look complicated, but once you've learned that each channel is exactly the same and you can follow the signal flow all the way down through the channel, they become far less intimidating. I remember I took my mother to see the SAE campus in Byron Bay, and we had a giant, large format console there, and she was very impressed that I knew how to use that. And then I explained to her that each channel is exactly the same, and once you learn one of them, you know the whole console. And then she was extremely unimpressed.
You're telling her secrets. You're giving away the secrets.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
so
my
it is not
goodness.
like a cockpit in an airplane where everything does something different. Once you learn one channel, and learning that channel is really about learning signal flow and trying to teach students to visualize that signal flow down through each channel, which I think these simulators do, because they allow you to learn those things in your own time without any of the other pressures. I think the pressures are the problem. If you had unlimited time, you would learn the console very, very quickly, but having a digital simulation with no time pressure, where you can't do anything wrong, where you can also instantly reset it. So with a physical console, once you get yourself in trouble, you've got to go back and manually zero the console by flicking out every switch and turning every dial back to its neutral position. And you can just click a button and do that with the simulator. So if you get yourself in trouble, you can always just go back to the beginning really quickly. And the other huge advantage is you can save your settings. So you can walk in, load a file, and you're exactly where you started out, and you can't do that in a physical studio.
That's awesome. So you are widely known for your work as a mastering engineer as well at Australia's largest mastering studio, Turtlerock Mastering, and you've worked on Australia's some of their highest selling albums. Do you have any fun stories to share there, or any cool experiences?
Yeah, I worked at Turtlerock for around 10 years. I don't work there anymore. At the time when I worked there, they were Australia's largest mastering studio. Me and the head engineer there, Rick O'Neill, who's still running the show there, worked on mainly Australian releases. It was a really great opportunity because I got a job working at Turtlerock while I was still studying audio engineering. So that's a fairly rare experience, and got thrown in the deep end and had to learn how to master records at the highest level of commercial audio production while still studying. So I had a lot of really great clients. The best part of that job was working with up and coming bands, not big names, which might be surprising to some, but it's far more rewarding helping up and coming musicians with their first record because they're more excited about the process. They love the entirety of what mastering can do to their record, and they actually show up to sessions. A lot of the larger clients, you never actually see them; they're just sending through files. So that was interesting. Funny story: someone put a 20 kilohertz sine wave on top of their record just to see if I could hear it when I was mastering it. I couldn't, but it was blowing out my VU meters, so I knew something was there. And then I asked him, and then he just basically told me, I put this frequency on just to see if you could hear it, to test your hearing, and it looks like you could. And I couldn't. I could just see it on the meters.
You didn't tell him that though, did you?
I did. Yeah.
You're like, I heard it. I'm a genius.
Yeah, I don't need to pass your test to be a good mastering engineer.
That's right.
It's the ins and outs.
Takes.
Ins and outs.
Takes.
With Mackie.
Well, I think that this is a perfect time for our ins and out takes, which is a rapid fire of random questions. Are you ready for that?
Okay, let's do it.
I've prepared some especially for you, Doctor. So you hold a PhD in psychoacoustics, which is critical listening and technical ear training for our listeners. Who do you think is the best singer in the world?
The best singer, Mike Patton.
Okay, that's a really great answer. Relatedly, what is the most unpleasant sound in the world?
Advertising.
What are your thoughts on ASMR?
I'm surprised it took so long to become widely recognized because I think those sounds and the entire concept of what ASMR is has been really, I've been familiar with it for a really long time. So I'm quite surprised it took so long to become so widely known, the benefits of it and the obsession that people have with it. But I'm also not surprised.
If you weren't an acoustical genius, what's another career you would have liked to explore?
Surgeon.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I would relish the opportunity.
True or false? Moving your arms and hands up and down while you sing helps you sing better.
True. It also helps you breathe better.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. If you're out of breath, you should raise your arms. It helps you get air into your lungs faster.
All right. Okay, Christina Aguilera. We understand now. Have you ever created a simulator outside of music?
That's a good question.
I mean, there's so many things you could do.
Yeah, it's a great question because you can simulate anything that's sort of hardware based. I did have plans to create a camera simulator. I've thought about it long and hard, but I haven't developed anything to date because I've just got a list of audio stuff I've got to get through and get done. So no.
All right. What is one of the best random experiences you have had during a lecture?
During a lecture, I had a student fall unconscious.
Oh my goodness.
He was diabetic and he hadn't taken his insulin that day. So that's that happened on one of my very first lectures.
Is he okay?
So that was, he was fine.
Good.
that was an interesting experience. I've had a lecture interrupted by an earthquake in Dubai. Not a big one, but the first one I was in. I know a lot of colleagues in America are used to them, but that was the first one I'd encountered. And that was interesting.
What was that situation like? How big was it? Did you notice it? Or sometimes people don't even notice them when they happen.
Oh, my chair started rolling across the... it was actually in Iran, but we felt it in Dubai. The glass walls started shaking, and then all of a sudden I was moving in front of my desk, and we evacuated pretty quickly.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm glad you're safe. On that note, what's your favorite lecture to give? You've given so many.
I like teaching the science of sound, so acoustics, sound theory, decibel theory, which is, I guess a lot of people might think is the dry part of audio engineering, but I love it. I love the mathematical side of sound. So I would call myself a scientist in terms of audio engineering. Although I've worked in production and mastering, my passion is the science behind it, which is why I kept on studying and still study today.
All right. Well, last question. Who would play you in the movie of your life?
That's a great question. Bryan Cranston.
That's a really good one.
I just tried to think of someone bald. Yeah, he's ticking boxes. Bald, glasses, teacher.
That's all I can picture.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Mark Bassett, anything else you'd like to share? Any websites or places people can check out your virtual simulators?
So to download the simulator, it's publicly available and freely available for download. Just go to sae.edu.au/showcase/software and you can find it. If you just Google Mackie 1604 VLZ4 simulator, you'll find it as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Before we leave, who do you think we should have on the show next?
Oh,
Mike
that's a great
Patton.
question. I think you should get Andy Wallace.
Okay. And who's Andy Wallace?
Andy Wallace is a mixing engineer. He would have mixed hundreds of records you've heard, but he's a bit of a recluse, and I don't hear from him enough. He famously mixed Nirvana's Nevermind, produced Jeff Buckley's Grace.
Wow.
Did a lot of stuff, but also Britney Spears, all different things. He's my favorite,
We'll take
favorite
him.
audio engineer.
We'll take him. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Once again, I'm Jamie Hernandez, and this is the Ins and Outs with Mackie, a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We'll be bringing you musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and sometimes the occasional Mackoid. If you're new to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite platform to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they are out. Until next time, Mackoids.
It's the ins and outs.